I think it's important to recognize that if we're able to, maybe take a stronger approach for a shorter time and really heal, get down to the root of the issues, really heal our gut health and our hormonal health, then going forward, our bodies can withstand a lot more. So it's, I think a lot of people get really disheartened when they try a diet or they try something and, within a month it doesn't work. But most nutritional protocols are 90 days and then it's the maintenance, right? So you might need to take those 90 days to really heal yourself, again, utilizing supplements and utilizing different practices. Talking to a healthcare professional can really help support that. And then afterwards, using cycle syncing and really living in tune with your body, connecting to your body and recognizing how your body actually talks to you is really, really beneficial.
Welcome to the Woman's Doctor podcast, helping empower women to embrace their body and soul's full potential. I'm your host, Dr. Trevor Cates, and after 22 years of working with patients, I found the answers to our health struggles are much deeper than most people realize. To help explore this, I'm interviewing colleagues and other wellness experts to get to the root cause so women can realize their true beauty and be informed decision makers for themselves and their loved ones. Did you know that the majority of research that we rely upon is male-centric? It wasn't until 1986 that the NIH established a policy that encouraged researchers to include women in studies. This means that much of the research has not factored in how women's hormones and health are vastly different. It's time for us to look at women's health, hormones, and cycles differently. So my guest today is Nicole Bendayan. She is a certified holistic nutritionist and menstrual health educator who helps women optimize their lives, balance hormones, and manage menstrual-related issues and thrive both personally and professionally by tailoring their lives to the 4 phases of their menstrual cycles. In today's episode, we talk about why it's important for women to live in tune with our cycles, how hormonal birth control has gotten us out of sync, and how to support our bodies through each phase of the cycle to regain balance. We even discuss how to leverage our cycles to reduce burnout and optimize our personal and professional lives, in addition to all of the health benefits that we can get. This and much more on today's episode of the Woman's Doctor podcast. Nicole, it's so great to have you on the Woman's Doctor podcast. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a joy interviewing you for the Hormones, Health, and Harmony docuseries. I know it's funny. My daughter found you on TikTok, my 20-year-old, and said, "Mom, you should interview this woman for your docuseries because she's got great things to say about periods and cycles and fertility, and women need to know this." And so that's how we connected.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. And so I think you have quite a journey that got you here. I think a lot of people do. They have a story of why you become so passionate for what you do. So can you share with people what that is?
For sure. I mean, it's been a lifelong journey. I was really into food and nutrition from a young age, but never really thought I could make a career out of it. So I kind of just, went through life. And it wasn't until I actually went off of birth control and I started doing a lot of research. So I was on birth control since I was about 16, so about almost a decade. And I had a lot of really negative symptoms while I was on it and would go to my doctors and they would just dismissed me, unfortunately. So I took it upon myself to go off of it after all of these years. And once I did, I started doing a lot more research to try to figure out, are these symptoms correlated? Are they not? And all of the symptoms that I had were on this newspaper-sized pamphlet. And that really got me thinking into how, I don't really know much about this. Even though I was really into food and nutrition, I didn't really know anything about women's health and my body specifically, especially being on the pill. So once I went off of it, that was the first time that I actually recognized that there was 4 phases to my cycle. So I never knew that there was 4 phases to my cycle before this, which was really a shocker, thinking that I was really well informed, going through my journey, getting certified in holistic nutrition. And I knew nothing about my cycle. The more research that I did, the more I realized that I knew nothing. And as I was talking to other women around me, really realized that they weren't taught much and they didn't really know much and they didn't really have a feel about what their body was going through on a cyclical everyday basis, really, because the cycle does affect you every day. So that's kind of led me into focusing really on women's health. And it's just been a really incredible journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I think it is important when you talk about birth control pills and other, especially hormonal forms of birth control, they just suppress the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And so that women they don't have a chance to really understand their cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Because it completely changes it. I know that when women are on birth control pills, a lot of times they'll just have blank pills so that they have a period, and
Mm-hmm.
women thinking, oh, it's like my body is doing what it normally does, but it's actually not. It's not the same. And so when we go off birth control pills, and say a woman's trying to get pregnant or then that, it's hard to understand what's
Mm-hmm.
happening with our body. So let's talk about the power of knowing your cycle. Like, what have you found to be some of the most, besides being able to get pregnant easily? I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing, that when women are ready to get pregnant, if they want to, or if they don't want to, understanding what their cycle is.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of women don't even know that they're only fertile for about 6 or 7 days out of the month, which that alone is huge knowledge. And I think when we're able to understand and live in tune with our cycles, it helps our mind, body, and soul. It's really, we're governed by these unique rhythms. And if we're able to live in tune with those rhythms, then we can improve our physical health, our nutrition, our hormones. We can also give ourselves a lot more grace. I know myself, I struggled a lot with PMS symptoms. And, a lot of women think that, the main events in their cycle is PMS in their period, when it's really ovulation, but those are the ones that we see. And we can really help support that time by tailoring our nutrition and lifestyle earlier on in our cycle. So I think it's just really empowering for us to be able to live in tune with our cycle and the different phases of our cycle, because each one has its unique, functions and abilities that we have. Our brain chemistry and our brain size actually changes during our cycle, which is mind blowing. So, in your follicular phase, you have more creativity, more motivation, while in your luteal phase, you might need to take some more time to yourself or rest a little bit and recover. So being able to live with these fluctuations and not just feel like you're on a roller coaster, I think is extremely empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times women, they don't realize that these things are changing. I mean, I remember as a young girl thinking that the way that we were scared about getting pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
that it could happen at any time, at any moment. And so you always have to be on your guard. And I think there was a reason for that. And they just, adults really didn't want teens to get pregnant, which,
Yeah.
so there was a little bit of that, which I get, but information is power. And when
Mm-hmm.
we are really taught to understand, and when we learn our own bodies, it's extremely empowering. I think
Mm-hmm.
another thing that's led into a lot of issues with what we know about our bodies or trying to understand our bodies is that so much of research on health was based on men's health.
Yes.
And so there for so long, we've been put in boxes like men,
Mm-hmm.
but we change so much compared to men within the month or within a cycle. And it's so crucial for us to understand that most of the research on science and medicine, and it's been male focused, and that women have very different hormones and cycles that impact our brains, like you said, our emotional state, our
Mhm.
physical state. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. And, I love that you were talking about how a lot of the research has been done on men and postmenopausal women, because women are often faced with this information, if we're finding it online or, through potentially not reputable sources or don't really understand it, we won't recognize that these are set for men and postmenopausal women. And it wasn't actually until 1993 that women were required to be in research studies in the States. So it's really a recent thing. And also, if you think about the expression of certain issues, so for instance, there are people who teach women how to fake a heart attack like a man, so that because the symptoms are very different for men versus women of having a heart attack. So there's people that teach women how to act like a man having a heart attack, because that's when they'll actually be seen and be heard by healthcare professionals, which is really scary.
Oh, yeah, that's really scary. I've never heard that. That's interesting. Yeah. So I think, yeah, it's so much of what we're taught, and it goes over
Mhm.
into the workplace and how women are treated in work and all
Mhm.
of that. It's good for us to really understand research wise, for research to, of course, open up and do more with women. I think that's happening more, but in the meantime, it's just good for know when you're looking at information, for example, studies on fasting as an
Intermittent
example, and
fastings.
how that impacts our health. Were those research studies done mostly on men, or did they actually include women in that? And knowing
Mhm.
the health benefits of even some of the therapeutic things that we do, that do they really apply to women? And so, yeah, it's fascinating,
Mhm.
right? So let's talk some about the phases of our cycles. And can you kind of break it down?
Sure. So your cycle is from the first day of your bleed to the first day of your next bleed. That's a full cycle. And it starts with your menstrual phase. So that's your actual period. And then you go into your follicular phase, which is when estrogen is rising, a follicle that is housing an egg starts to grow, and that's what's releasing estrogen. And that has to grow to a certain point and hit a certain threshold to actually ovulate, to trigger the other hormones to be produced so that you can actually ovulate. And ovulation is really the main event in the cycle. Your hormones can actually fluctuate between 30 and 50% around ovulation. And that's really the main event. If you're not ovulating, you're not having a true cycle. And, we can go back to talking about birth control with that. And that's why you're not really having a full cycle, because you're not ovulating. And then once you ovulate, you go into the luteal phase. And the luteal phase, progesterone is the dominant hormone. And progesterone has so many incredible effects. It's really calming, and it has really great brain effects and just health. It's really beneficial for your health, of course. So then your cycle starts all over again, if you don't get pregnant. And yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And then, from a skin perspective, women's skin can change throughout the month because of these
Hmm.
changes. Like estrogen tends to give us this kind of glow to us.
Hmm.
And I mean more of like a vibrancy, a pinkness, and all of that. And then, so that's why I think a lot of times women are kind of during ovulation, they kind of have
Hmm.
this like vibrancy around them. And that's a part of nature's like wanting
Yeah.
to procreate, like,
Yeah.
woo, you're looking really glowy right now.
It's,
And then progesterone actually creates more of the oils in the skin. I think a lot of times we think about androgens, testosterone doing that,
mhm.
which it does, but also progesterone does that to a different extent. So then a lot of times women, they might start to notice their skin is oilier in the second phase of their cycle, like right before their period starts. So I think it's really fascinating to see how our hormones, these fluctuations can change and just from day to day within our cycle. And that's just our skin. And then, of course, our mood is going to be impacted by that too. Like progesterone significantly impacts our mood. And when it drops
Mhm.
off, we feel that. We
Oh
can
yeah.
feel, especially when we go perimenopausal, when progesterone is already starting to
Mhm.
decline. in relationship to our other hormones. When we have that drop in progesterone, it's like, whoa, like what happened? I can't sleep and I'm moody and all of these things happen. So I love for women to understand this because it helps them understand it's not just like I feel crazy or
Mhm.
it's not just all in your head. It's your actual physiology. And I think it's good for men to know this too, so that they can
100%.
they can understand that, okay, this is what's going on. Like now's when I want to
Mhm.
be more supportive, or now I need to like give her space.
Yeah, it helps so much with communication.
Mhm.
And, it really helps with feeling confident in yourself. I know for myself, when I was experiencing a lot of these fluctuations, didn't know why. And, I would have mood swings and snap at someone, then feel really guilty. And that would really affect my confidence levels as well, throughout the month, because I'm like, if I can't control myself or I don't know how I'm going to react one day to the next, then that really depletes your confidence. But if you're able to really understand where you are at any given time and really understand your patterns, you're able to predict and prepare for them. So I always tell my clients and my audience to have difficult conversations in their ovulatory phase, because that's when you're going to, because of the effects on estrogen on your brain, you're probably going to be a lot more clear, you're going to have more energy, you're going to really be able to focus a little bit more. So those are a great time to have the harder conversations, rather than in your later luteal phase, when you might be a little bit more irritable or not as clear, so you can really tailor all of these different aspects of your life to your cycle. And once you really understand your patterns, you're able to really live in tune with them. And that has so many far reaching benefits.
Perfect. So let's talk about how we can support our bodies through these different phases. What are some of the ways we can naturally support? Because there are certainly things like having extreme PMS, having a
Mhm.
period pain, having extreme symptoms is not necessary. It might be common, but it's not
Mhm.
necessary. There are things that we can do to understanding that there are fluctuations, but that we can kind of roll with it and not
Yeah.
have it just be so sudden or have to take time off work or lock ourselves in our bedrooms.
100%. And a lot of these more severe symptoms are signs that your body is trying to tell you that something might be askew. So it's trying to bring attention to your cycle to tell you that you really need to nourish yourself, and you really need to think about your health through a holistic lens, and especially as women through a menstrual lens, because your hormones, your whole body is really a symphony, and everything is impacting everything else. So it's really important to really go in tune with your rhythm. And of course, as a nutritionist, I focus mainly on nutrition and how you can support your cycle through nutrition. And it was a term coined by Elisa Vitti, but cycle syncing is the practice of doing so. So if you're able to sync up your nutrition with the different phases of your cycle, you're able to not only help at that specific time, but also as your cycle goes on, it improves your overall cycle. So, for instance, during your menstrual phase, most women are losing about 2 milligrams of iron per day. So, if you're not increasing your iron around that time, then that can cause fatigue, headaches, feeling really fatigued. And of course, that's not ideal. And then in your follicular phase, where estrogen is rising, we really want to be able to process out that estrogen and metabolize that estrogen as our body is, utilizing it, and then it releases it. So if we're able to metabolize that with supporting foods such as cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, as well as fermented food that really help our gut health, which helps again metabolize estrogen. Those are great ways to then support not only that phase, but also your luteal phase, because a lot of the issues that women experience with mood swings and water retention, weight gain, that can be in part because of the estrogen progesterone balance in your luteal phase. So if you're not able to release that estrogen and metabolize it, then you can have a more severe luteal phase.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, that's totally makes sense. And so you can support these phases of your cycle with the foods that you eat. Probably, I don't know if you recommend that, but also there are supplements to
Mhm.
take if you need additional support, if the food is not enough. And it's so interesting to talk about these cycles. It's part of what led me to write my book, Natural Beauty Reset, is that, and talk about a seasonal approach, because we're not the same all the time. It's
Mhm.
even within a day, our cortisol levels should be changing. Some people it's flat, but throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout the seasons, throughout the year, but throughout our lives, we go through these fluctuations. So it is a good idea to mix it up and to do
Mhm.
different things at different times. And I think this is where people sometimes get in trouble and they'll say, well, this diet doesn't work for me, or eating healthy doesn't work for me, or, well, that's because you might need to adjust certain
Mhm.
things, that you might need to mix it up depending upon where you are in your cycle, right?
Totally. And, coming off of that point as well, I think it's important to recognize that if we're able to, maybe take a stronger approach for a shorter time and really heal, get down to the root of the issues, really heal our gut health and our hormonal health, then going forward, our bodies can withstand a lot more. So I think a lot of people get really disheartened when they try a diet or they try something and within a month it doesn't work. But most nutritional protocols are 90 days and then it's the maintenance, right? So you might need to take those 90 days to really heal yourself, again utilizing supplements and utilizing different practices. Talking to a healthcare professional can really help support that. And then afterwards, using cycle syncing and really living in tune with your body, connecting to your body, and recognizing how your body actually talks to you is really, really beneficial. And I think a lot of that goes back to education and how important it is to be educated about our bodies and how to support our bodies. Because like you said, our bodies are constantly fluctuating. Life has seasons as well that may, you have really good times and not so great times. But if you're able to support yourself through all of those different times, then, overall you're living a better lifestyle. And I think a lot of that goes down to education.
Yes. And looking at our bodies holistically, a holistic approach to addressing root causes and
Mhm.
really looking at that is essential in regaining this in restoring or creating resilience, because some women have never experienced it before.
Yeah.
And so for some, it will be for the first time creating more resilience. Others, it will be getting back what you used to have. And so let's talk. So you mentioned gut health and that being part of what we want to
Mhm.
address, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Gut health is so important to everybody. And I really love to focus on gut microbiome. And gut microbiome is the bacteria in your gut. And, we have healthy bacteria and there's also opportunistic bacteria. But if we have a lot of these healthy bacteria, then that can fight off a lot of issues. Your gut microbiome supports your hormonal health. It helps to metabolize estrogen. It has a bidirectional relationship with estrogen. It also is super important in the assimilation and digestion of nutrients. It helps to stabilize your blood sugar levels. It helps your immune system. It synthesizes neurotransmitters. So it actually affects your brain and your mood. So it's super, super important to have a healthy gut. And when we don't have a healthy gut, that can lead to, leaky gut, dysbiosis, things that can cause really severe inflammation. So it's really, really important to address your gut health.
Oh, great. And with diet, that we can do some of that, getting more fiber in our diet
Mhm.
and making sure we're not overdoing it with processed foods and sugar and other things like that. Anything else that you find particularly helpful?
I do love supplements for almost everything. I think it's important to know what supplements would be great for you. I have my own supplement line as well. We have a synced balance, which helps with hormonal health, improving progesterone, making sure that you're actually ovulating, which is great. And we also have a focus supplement that really helps with brain health. And in that focus supplement, I did put L-glutamine, which is really, really beneficial for your gut health. And I did that for the long-term health of your gut and your brain, because again, everything is really, really interconnected and your body is a symphony. So your gut health is going to affect your reproductive health as well as your brain health and, vice versa altogether.
Yeah, great. And you also talk about how to leverage your cycle to reduce burnout and optimize your
Mhm.
like work and life kind of balance.
Yeah, I love this because I touched upon it a little bit earlier, but estrogen and progesterone both have effects on your brain. So our brain is actually changing throughout our cycle. And if we're able to understand our moods, our patterns, our abilities, etc., then again, we're able to predict and prepare for what's to come and what we're doing in that specific phase. So, for instance, during the menstrual phase, your hormones are at their lowest. So, this is usually a really great time to go in introspectively and really reflective and maybe take some more time for yourself and really without judgment analyze what's gone on for the previous cycle so that you can plan and make those changes as your estrogen is developing, and that is developing your energy levels and your creativity, your motivation. So usually in the follicular phase, you're a little bit more motivated to actually get things done. And that's a great time to start new projects or to do those meetings. And then as you in your ovulatory phase, we talked about it with your glowing, you're vibrant, you're often more social, more confident. So that's a great time to plan certain things like, if we're doing a podcast or if you have a big meeting or you want to ask for a raise. And then going into your luteal phase, that's often a great time for more administrative tasks and kind of just getting stuff done. And it really goes back to tracking yourself and understanding your patterns. But if you are able to really utilize specific times in your cycle, such as your ovulatory phase, then to really focus on rest and recovery during your menstrual phase, living in tune with those fluctuations can really help support your productivity and reduce your burnout and make you feel more confident in your abilities because you truly are understanding how your abilities are kind of fluctuating throughout the month. And that can be really beneficial overall.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let's talk a bit about birth control in that, and because we've talked about how hormonal birth control can suppress your ability to really understand what's happening with your cycle because it's
Mhm.
suppressing ovulation. And so what do you think what do you recommend for birth control for women who are, they want to plan and it's not quite the right time yet?
I mean, for me, the one that I recommend always is the symptothermal method of fertility awareness. And that is tracking your biomarkers. So, tracking your cervical mucus, your basal body temperature, as well as your cervical position to understand when you're fertile. And there's of course a lot more that goes into it that we can't cover in the next few minutes. But if you're able to truly understand that, you're able to understand when you're fertile so that you can use, a different form of birth control, like a barrier method, or abstain from having sex during that time. And that can give you a lot more authority and autonomy over your fertility and just really help you understand it. I think it's really important, especially with everything going on, that women have access to hormonal birth control. But with that said, it's very important that they have informed consent when it comes to birth control, which means understanding the true side effects, understanding the impact that it has on you, as well as understanding any other options that we have, which I feel we often don't. We're not really afforded those other options. We're not told about those other options. And yes, the fertility awareness method, symptothermal method, does require a lot more responsibility. And, you do have to keep up with it a lot more, but it's also so empowering. And not only is it really empowering to avoid pregnancy, it's also empowering when you do want to try to conceive because you know the optimal times to try to conceive. You also now have so much health data that you're able to see when something might be askew in your body a lot quicker. And you have that health data to bring to a healthcare professional to help you work through it as well. And that is just really, really beneficial.
Right. Yes. And for women who it's just too hard to kind of track that, especially for women that maybe have PCOS or irregular cycles or things
Mhm.
going where they're just having a hard time kind of tracking and they need to use birth control there. I mean, I think that women being able to use birth control pills and having that has been very empowering for us as women to be able to decide when we want to have a baby and have that control over our bodies. And so I think that if a woman decides, yes, I need to be, hormonal birth control is really the best option for me right now. I think that there are things to help
Mhm.
support women through that, because we know that it depletes the body of certain nutrients like B vitamins. It can have an impact on the gut microbiome. And so at least with those two things,
Mhm.
doing things to make sure that you're really supporting your gut health, you're taking a
100%.
multivitamin or a B complex would be even better. Anything else that you suggest to people are like, you know what, I'm just not ready to go off of birth control, especially
Mhm.
with, if I were to happen to get pregnant, it would be a real big issue.
Yeah, 100%. First, I just want to mention that even those with irregular periods and PCOS can use fertility awareness method and the symptothermal method. It just, again, does take a little bit more
Yeah.
effort.
Okay.
So, but going back to your original question, 100%. Selenium, zinc, vitamin E, vitamin C, they're really important to be replenished. So making sure that you are either taking a multivitamin and or the specific vitamins that birth control depletes. Also supporting your liver is really, really important. And the reason why a lot of those vitamins get depleted is because birth control is really taxing on your liver. And those are a lot of the nutrients that you need to help detoxify yourself. So it's really important to also help support your liver. Try to avoid drinking, try to avoid things that will put an added strain onto your liver would be really important as well when you're on birth control. Like you said, the gut microbiome is super important. Making sure to still use protection, because the effects of birth control on the pH balance and the vaginal flora do make you more susceptible to infection, as so yeast infections, but also STIs and so forth. So it's really important to maintain using protection and caution while you're on birth control as well. And then as you decide to come off of it, or when you feel is the right time to come off of it, doing a post-birth control protocol is really important. I have a full course on this because it's really, really important so that you don't get post-birth control syndrome, which is a term coined by, I'm blanking on her name now, but it's very important because the effects that birth control has had on your system, you do need to repair your system. So making sure that you're able to align your cycle, really flush out all of those synthetic hormones, and making sure that you are really reviving your systems.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Okay. And then we've been talking about hormonal birth control, and I just want to clarify. So the main one that people talk about are birth control pills.
Mhm.
But there's also other forms of hormonal birth control, including IUDs that have progestin, or the synthetic form of progesterone. Do you find that it's still similar kinds of issues with the progestin, or is that just not something you see?
So there are a lot of similarities, of course. So with the combination of both estrogen and progestin, those you're likely going to see a lot more side effects or symptoms. And with the progestin only, you can still see a lot of side effects. Progestin only will suppress ovulation, but not consistently. So again, you're not getting the right balance of hormones. You may or may not be fluctuating like that. So it might be a little bit more difficult to continue to understand your cycle. And that alone has a lot of things associated to it as well when we're not having a regular cycle, because our bodies are made to have these regular cycles. So you're going to see a lot of those issues. Also, progestin has been shown to have a lot of effects on mood as well. So you may still experience a lot of those mood swings. Anxiety and depression are often really associated with it. So those are just things to factor in as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Nicole. This has been fantastic. And then you have a course coming up here pretty soon. Can you tell everyone about that?
For sure. So I'm doing a little master class. It's the Get Synced master class, and that's really cycle syncing 101, really overview of your cycle and how to support your cycle. And then also I'm opening up my digital education platform, the Sync Society Academy, which has the Get Synced course, which is really in-depth of nutrition and fitness, and then how to cycle sync your nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle to each of your phases, as well as we have the Understanding PCOS, Understanding Endometriosis, as well as the Ditch Birth Control Protocol, which are all courses that are a little bit more tailored to specific needs at specific times. But yeah, we're opening those all up. It should be September 20th. And yeah.
Okay, awesome. And where else can people find you?
So I am on Instagram and TikTok at Nicole.Bendayan. Those are really the main ways to find me, but you can also find me at thesyncSociety.com, as well as feel free to email me, Nicole@NicoleBendayan.com.
Great. And I encourage everyone to see Nicole in the Hormones, Health, and Harmony docu-series. People can go to hormoneseries.com/trailer and see, register to watch it. See Nicole. She's throughout the docu-series. And so she and a bunch of other experts. And again, thank you, Nicole, for being in the docu-series and doing the podcast and doing all that you do to help women.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Woman's Doctor podcast, be sure to share it with the women in your life and rate and review the show. And to learn all about balancing your hormones, join us for the Hormones, Health, and Harmony 9-part documentary series at hormoneseries.com.